You're listening to The Pilot's Portfolio, formerly called the Pilot Money Podcast. To learn more about the name change, join us in Season 2.
When we think about your loss of medical insurance or your long-term disability insurance, you've probably heard of like surgeons or pianists who insure their hands because that's, the way that they earn their income. So essentially what you guys are doing with this loss of medical is you're insuring your health because the ability to keep that first-class medical is your ability to go earn income.
You're listening to The Pilot's Portfolio, the show dedicated to guiding professional pilots towards a future of financial success and stability. Fly along with your host, Timothy P. Pope, as he provides financial planning insights and answers to your burning questions and dives into real-life stories from fellow pilots who share their successes and cautionary tales. The Pilot's Portfolio takes off now.
Well, pilots, welcome back to another episode of Pilot's Portfolio. It is great to be back after a brief break in recording. My name is Timothy P. Pope. I'm a certified financial planner specializing in the planning needs of the professional pilot. In today's episode, we are going to talk about all things loss of medical. But specifically, this is for you guys that are flying for American Airlines. I'd like to do the major passenger carriers, but I want to do them in separate episodes because, number one, each carrier is different. The way that you guys have your benefits and what you have available through your unions are different. So I'd like to do them in separate episodes. And I think it'd be just easier to follow along if we do it that way. And number two, if we try to smash all of the major carriers, their loss of medical benefits, this would be an extremely long episode. So with your interest in mind, being able to follow along easier, a shorter episode, and you knowing exactly which episode pertains to you based off who you fly for, I think that's what we're going to do. All right, so when we think about loss of medical, I know you've thought about it and you've wondered what protections you have in place. And the way that American Airlines does it is with your most recent contract, they said they will give you 50% of your average monthly compensation with no cap if you happen to lose your medical. Now, if you're looking for this in your contract, it's going to be called your long-term disability plan. And so the way that they're going to figure out what your average monthly compensation is the day that you go on loss of medical, like you put your disability claim in, they're going to have you exhaust your sick leave and your vacation pay. They're going to have you run those balances down to zero. And they're going to look back and they're going to say, hey, over the past 5 years, what calendar year did you gross highest in terms of your earnings? And they're going to look at that. And I think there's another calculation as well. This one is pretty easy to understand. So they're going to take a 5-year look back, figure out what your highest 12 months were, and then they're going to give you 50% of that number. With all insurance, there's this concept called an elimination period. And that's just simply, hey, how long do I have to wait from when I put in my disability claim to when the payments actually start? And with the contract, there's 60 days after the onset of your disability. And they also want you to expire your paid sick leave and vacation. So you got to work those down. And then your disability payments are going to start. So 60 days, that is not that long. If you have a well-funded emergency fund, you should be covered. Okay. So that's not that long of an elimination period. Now, some of you may have asked, if I'm going to get 50% of my average monthly compensation, is that pre-tax or is that after tax? Because that makes a difference. And if you've asked yourself that question, you are absolutely correct. It makes a huge difference whether you take those benefits pre-tax or after tax. And the good news is your contract allows you to make a year-by-year decision whether you're going to take your long-term disability payments as a pre-tax benefit or as an after-tax benefit. And the way you do that is just during open enrollment. As you're filling out your benefits, you're going to elect one or the other. And here's the difference. If you elect to take your long-term disability as a pre-tax benefit, then throughout the year and whenever you're not on disability, the company is going to pay the disability premiums for you, and no harm, no foul. You're not going to see any difference on your pay. If you elect to take it as an after-tax benefit, the company is going to pay those premiums for you, but then you're going to pay tax on what's called an imputed income. So you actually didn't receive any money from the company paying the premiums, but you received the benefit of the premiums being paid. And so you're going to pay tax on that. The difference is once you go on disability, if you have a pre-tax, the company is going to calculate your 50% of average monthly compensation. They're going to give you 50% of what you're used to earning. And then the government is going to ask for taxes out of that disability payment. If you take it as an after-tax, then same calculations will occur. But then when you get those disability payments, you're not going to be asked to pay income tax. And so that's the difference. And typically what I have clients think about is like, look, let's see if it makes sense for you to pay the tax on the imputed income while you have cash, while you're getting, your pay and you're able to fly. So then if you go on disability, you don't have to worry about getting a 50% haircut and then also having to pay taxes on top of that benefit, because then that would be a number that's way less than what you're used to getting on a month-to-month basis. So think about paying the imputed income while you have the cash flow so you can maximize your cash flow if you go on disability and you're not flying. Now, if you have other sources of guaranteed income already and you crunch your numbers and you say, well, it wouldn't impact me that much if I have to pay tax on my disability benefit, then okay, right? You have that option. Or if you do not have other sources of guaranteed income right now, and you select the after-tax benefit, and then through your investments and your acquisitions and so forth, you develop sources of guaranteed income or other sources of income, you can always turn the imputed income off later, right? So you get a year-by-year choice. The other thing that I want to talk about is your disability income is not subject to any offsets. Now, this is not true across the board when we think about major carriers in the industry, but this is true for American, and in subsequent episodes, you'll see who else it's true for. But right now we're talking about American. So I think this is all really interesting stuff and you want to pay attention to it, okay? I think big picture, your disability income is not subject to offsets. So we think about workers' comp. So if you got hurt on the job, and American has to pay out for your getting hurt on the job, and they also have to pay out on your disability payment is not going to be offset by your workers' comp. If you are subject to state disability benefits, I know there's a couple states that I can think about, like California comes to mind. So if you go on disability and the state is paying you something, then your American Airlines disability is not going to be offset by whatever the state is providing. It's also not going to be offset from if you qualify for Social Security disability. Now, here's the thing. Social Security disability is pretty difficult to qualify for. So if you lose your medical and you qualify for Social Security disability, it may be safe to say that your flying future could be in jeopardy, at least for this foreseeable future, at least for that short term, unless whatever condition you have can be reversed. But it's pretty difficult to qualify for Social Security disability. So if you do, though, American Airlines is not going to reduce the amount of benefit that they pay for you. The last thing, which I think this is really important, is there is no offset to your loss of medical for other earned income. That is huge because we all know that there's a lot of things that you can do to earn pretty decent money without holding a first-class medical. And the fact that there's no offset for other earned income is huge. So when we think about your loss of medical insurance or your long-term disability insurance, you've probably heard of like surgeons or pianists who insure their hands because that's, the way that they earn their income. So essentially what you guys are doing with this loss of medical is you're insuring your health because the ability to keep that first-class medical is your ability to go earn income. Now, your contract is not the only disability benefits that you have access to. You also have your union, APA, puts out a POD and a PMA, and we're going to dive into that here in a moment. Before we do, I almost forgot to mention this, which this always makes me laugh. If you go out on disability, you will continue to receive the company NEC in your 401k. So whatever the calculation is on your average monthly compensation, then you are going to receive your NEC. Right now, it's 17%. It's scheduled to go to 18% January 1 of 2026. That makes me laugh because that is not real life. So enjoy that.
Hey, pilot, are you looking to save 20% on the sale or purchase of your next home? Let me tell you about a friend of the show, Beacon Relocation. With Beacon's exclusive real estate benefit, you can save thousands. My family has actually used their services when we needed to sell a property that was multiple states away. Beacon has over 1,500 experienced agents providing outstanding service and expertise as they guide you through every step of the buying or selling process. They'll even connect you with a national lender who offers competitive rates and discounted programs. As a Pilot's Portfolio listener, you are eligible to receive 20% of the real estate agent's commission towards your closing cost on the sale or purchase of your home. Visit beaconrelocation.com today. Select Pilot's Portfolio via the Apply Now drop-down menu to activate your benefits and make your next move your best move.
Buyer credit varies in some states. Contact us for details.
All right, let's talk about the loss of medical benefits that the APA also offers. So APA offers a long-term and a short-term supplement to your contractual loss of medical benefit. The long-term is called POD. It stands for Pilot Occupational Disability. Now, unlike your long-term disability that the company pays for you, these premiums are going to come right out of your pocket. So since you're paying the premiums here, that means that whatever benefit you receive is automatically going to be after tax. And let's talk about how you can structure what the company provides you plus this POD supplement to really get a high percentage of your pre-disability income. So your premiums are going to be based off of the year that you are, January 1 of that year. Matter of fact, I'm going to put the premium schedule in the show notes so you guys can take a look at this. As you age, your premiums are also going to increase, but you can know what it's going to be year by year. So the way that the POD or Pilot Occupational Disability works is you can choose a payout from $1,000 a month to $10,000 a month, or up to 40% of your average monthly compensation, whichever is less. Now, just like any insurance policy, this also has an elimination period. So that means how long from when I go on disability do I have to wait before these benefits start to get paid out? And I've looked at the language here, and it has one option that says, hey, you've got to wait 12 months from the onset of your disability or the date that you exhaust your sick hours or any vacation from the company. So I would expect, you exhausting your vacation and any sick hours probably less than 12 months. So I would expect the elimination period to be less than 12 months here. Let's say that you line this up. Maybe it's a couple of months that you have to wait. Then you start receiving payouts. And again, these are going to be tax-free payouts because you've paid the premiums yourself out of your pocket. So let's say you're 40 years old and your average monthly compensation was $240,000 a year. Let's just use that for nice math, okay? So that's going to be $20,000 a month is what you're used to receiving. So the company is going to give you 50% of that number. So that's going to be $10,000 a month. And then your POD benefit can provide 40% of that number. So that's going to be $8,000 a month. So between the company and the POD benefit, you can have $18,000 a month or 90% of your pre-disability earnings. And if you chose to use the after-tax portion on the company benefit, then you would have 90% tax-free of your pre-disability earnings, which when you calculate out what the taxes would be, I would say that you're not losing any purchasing power there, probably for the first year or so. As long as inflation isn't run away, you're not losing any purchasing power there. So if you're 40 years old, January 1, in the scenario that I just provided, that's going to cost you about $102.40 per month. And again, I'm going to put the chart in the show notes. You can kind of walk through and figure out, hey, I'm 40. I want $8,000 of benefit per month. It's going to cost me $1.28 per 100. And then you just multiply out. So 90% of your pre-disability earnings, that is not bad. Now, POD, it will pay out for 5 years or up to age 65. It's not going to go out to beyond age 65. If you do qualify for Social Security, your POD has an option for an extended benefit. So if you qualify for Social Security disability, you can then qualify for an extended benefit option under POD. And you'll remember, I just said, hey, if you qualify for Social Security disability, you're probably in a pretty tough spot, right? From a health perspective. and it's questionable how quickly you're going to return to flying. And so you get that extended option there on POD. I want to also mention POD does have a carve out for chemical dependency diagnosis. If that kind of diagnosis is why you're on your long-term disability, POD will pay out for 24 months instead of 60 months. All right, so 2 years instead of 5 years there. So those are the two long-term disability or loss of medical. So a lot of times, I know you guys, you listen to other shows. Shout out to the 21.5 show, by the way. They got a big sponsor there, Harvey Watt. And I think a lot of times that will prompt questions from 121 guys to say, hey, like, do I need to supplement my loss of medical? Well, I just showed you, at least at American, how you can get up to 90% of your pre-disability income. And by the way, that assumes your income is $300,000 or less. Then you can get up to 90% of your pre-disability earnings by using what the company gives you and then by using what the union gives you as well. Now, I would also say if your earnings are above $300,000 and you're concerned about what would happen if you went on disability, how the company and the union benefit may not meet your needs, then we need to have a conversation about how to structure your portfolio so you have access to cash in the case that you lose your medical and if those benefits aren't quite cutting it. Okay, so that's going to be if your pre-disability earnings are substantially above $300,000 per year. Let's talk about the short-term disability option. So the APA also has what's called PMA or Pilot Mutual Aid. This is a short-term disability benefit. It's designed to pay out for 12 months. Now, they really want you to sign up before you have 5 cumulative years of service. Okay, so I think there is an option. If you've passed that, then you could do some back pay. But ideally, if you're looking for a short-term option, you're going to want to sign up here before you have 5 years of cumulative service at American. And their open enrollment is August 1 to August 15th every year. That is different from the company's open enrollment, which is typically in the October-November timeframe. So the deal with the PMA or the Pilot Mutual Aid is, it has levels. So level 1, $1,980 a month. Level 2, you can elect to have $2,970 a month. And then level 3 is $3,960 a month. And so if you go out on disability, your elimination period is 60 days after the onset of your disability or when you've exhausted your sick leave and any vacation time. So if you think, 60 days and then PMA will pay out for 12 months. Well, your long-term disability that we talked about was also 60 days and the POD was also 12 months or when you exhaust your sick hours and vacation time for the company. So when I look at the PMA option, I really say, look, if your emergency fund is well-funded, I don't know that it makes sense to do both the PO and the PMA because your emergency fund in a lot of ways takes care of the short-term loss of income and then your long-term supplement kicks in. So I think when you evaluate that, of course, it's going to be dependent on your circumstance and probably also dependent on your risk tolerance. But those are my thoughts when it comes to the POD, the PMA, and then, of course, understanding what options you have just from the company provided long-term disability. So that's it. Guys, this is super strong. 50% of your average monthly compensation, no cap, no income offsets, ability to get up to 90% of pre-disability income if you match the company's long-term disability plus the union's POD, as long as your earnings are $300,000 or less. And then you have to choose pre-tax or post-tax on the company provided benefit. So I think that is extremely, extremely strong. And you can supplement that with, a short-term benefit should you require it. I would encourage you to get that emergency fund up yourself. But there you've got it. So in subsequent episodes, we will look at Delta, we will look at United, and we will look at Southwest on their loss of medical. If you guys have a company that you want me to take a look at, you can email in, just shoot me a note. But that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for joining this episode of Pilot's Portfolio. If you found this information helpful, spread the word and share it with a pilot buddy. Or if you have questions and there's something that you would like to hear discussed on the show, send us an email. You can find the address in the show notes.
For those of you who are ready to learn how we help professional pilots with their financial planning needs, schedule an appointment. Until next time, keep the shiny side up, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Pilot's Portfolio is hosted by Timothy P. Pope. Timothy P. Pope is principal owner of 360 Aviation Advisors. 360 Aviation Advisors is a registered investment advisory firm regulated by the state of North Carolina in accordance and compliance to the securities laws and regulations. 360 Aviation Advisors does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through Pilot's Portfolio. The information provided is for informational purposes only and may not be suitable for all investors and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. All investments involve a degree of risk, including the risk of loss.
Thank you for joining this episode of Pilot's Portfolio. If you found this information helpful, spread the word and share it with a pilot buddy. Or if you have questions and there's something that you would like to hear discussed on the show, send us an email. You can find the address in the show notes. For those of you who are ready to learn how we help professional pilots with their financial planning needs, schedule an appointment. Until next time, keep the shiny side up, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Pilot's Portfolio is hosted by Timothy P. Pope. Timothy P. Pope is principal owner of 360 Aviation Advisors. 360 Aviation Advisors is a registered investment advisory firm regulated by the state of North Carolina in accordance and compliance to the securities laws and regulations. 360 Aviation Advisors does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through Pilot's Portfolio. The information provided is for informational purposes only and may not be suitable for all investors and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. All investments involve a degree of risk, including the risk of loss.